Hello, friends, and welcome to the Worship Guitar Show, number 50, as Alan kindly pointed out. Wow, you just kind of go, where does the time go? The funny thing is that it seems like just yesterday, Worship Musician did this giant prepare for Easter video extravaganza, and I literally spent 24 hours editing video, like pretty much nonstop. And here we are a year later, and the fruit of all of that energy is this moment. So excited to be here with you. First of all, tonight's show is going to be a little bit shorter, but hopefully with the aid of the Focus Fox, focused on specifically answering whatever questions I can answer about your pedalboard situation and kind of this whole guitar acquisition syndrome that we all suffer from to one extent or another. So there's a bunch of new gear on the market, and traditionally, when Winter NAMM comes around 2 or 3 months later, it's kind of like 9 months later, all of a sudden this stuff starts to show up. And obviously, we didn't have a traditional Winter NAMM this year, but what's happening is now we're seeing the Quad Cortex show up. Everybody has heard about the various leaked things from Line 6 as well as HX Stomp XL, which is, I think, going to be the topic point of the next one of these. And so the idea is that, I kind of put together this little, let me see if I can go back to this. I'm going to turn my volume on because I've got it muted there. Hang on a second. There we go. So all sorts of kind of pedalboardy stuff. So we have more and more options, and in some ways, we can kind of chase trends, which there's nothing wrong with kind of being on the cutting edge of whatever it is that's happening. But at the same time, sometimes, you can just kind of get, it's dizzying the pace that it's at. So what I really wanted to do was just have the opportunity to speak to kind of the range of different things that I see happening, and most importantly, hopefully answer any questions that you've got. I know over the past week or so, I've been putting together kind of 3 or 4 boards for different things that I'm working on. And it's, whether it's kind of like how you make all that stuff fit, do you draw it out, do you start placing stuff when you've got units that are modeling devices, how you kind of organize the ins and the outs, where the XLRs go, you can't get stuff too close to the XLRs, the power requirements, all this, kind of 2 milliamps, 3 milliamps, these giant power consumers that you can't necessarily put on a traditional power supply. Do we go battery? Do we not go battery? What are the advantages of battery? Why would you want to do battery in the first place? And if you do, get a second one, a hot swappable backup, and just kind of all these different things and more. So the interesting thing is that I'm not seeing my chat spill over into this window yet. But I actually have, there we go, comments and reactions. There we go. All right. First of all, Alan, thanks again so much. Much appreciated. So let me hop over, and I actually have these other windows already open, so I can get in and take a gander. And we want to be over here. There we go. So let's see, first of all. Alan, all right, there's 8 watching, but everybody is being shy tonight, which isn't a big problem in this end of the woods. So first of all, now wait a second. I opened up another, there we go. There it is. Forrest, hey, what's going on? Great to see you. Hello. Big 50, thank you so much. I've never been 50 twice. And in any case, and I've been 50 twice a couple of times. All right, so here's the thing. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. So I'm just going to jump in and really kind of speak to some of the challenges. Again, how do we, in the framework of the fact that California in June is going to be, in theory, completely opened up, so people can actually go out and worship freely, meet. We're at a point where the virus is in decline. And so long as that trend continues, we'll be actually doing church normally. So it means that all this stuff of what do we got in front of us? How are we monitoring? How are we getting in front of house? Do we have an amp? Do we not have an amp? And just kind of all the various challenges And, it's an interesting thing. This past Sunday, I played bass at a local church here. And I actually took the Quad Cortex with me and just wanted to have the experience of kind of doing bass on that device. And I actually did a battery-powered rig just to kind of see what that would be like. And it was really interesting kind of, going through that whole routine again. So first of all, again, if anybody has any questions, I invite you, I implore you. Chris Kettlewell, hello. Good to see you. Speaking of battery powered, so it's morning here. Awesome. Good on you, huh? So Chris Kettlewell actually helped me get my battery powered world going. So thank you very much. And this is exactly the point of this. So I thought I was going to, and I can say this here because we're kind of like letting out our airs or not putting on an air or whatever the heck it is. So I thought, I'm going to go out. I've heard, I've got an influencer buddy of mine that, swears by the Anchor stuff on Care and KER stuff on Amazon. And so basically I was like, let me go out and buy the biggest, most bad, grossly $150 power bank. What I discovered after I hooked up said power bank, because it fired up the Quad Cortex just fine, I failed to do an audio test, and somebody made a comment having basically tested a similar battery, is more or less when you've got this 12-volt thing going on, is some of these power banks will scale to the voltage of the unit, and some won't. And it just so happens that my $150 power bank that's going back would not scale to 12 volts. So the audio level was low. It fired up, lasted, 5 hours. But that doesn't do you much good if the audio level is there. So the point being is there's always some new little twist in the road. The other thing is, as I mentioned before, I'm super excited. I've kind of had a chance to go through a number of different phases of the Quad Cortex thing. And I'm excited to jump back into Line 6 universe, amongst others, in kind of this HX Stomp XL. I'm super excited about that box. And so first of all, anybody that's there, do me a favor, shoot me a little note, kind of like, if you're using a modeler, what is it? If you're using an amp, what is it? If you're just playing acoustic guitar, what's your acoustic guitar? Are you using any kind of effects with that? So on and so forth. So, the interesting thing is though, this whole battery thing, I'll be perfectly honest. I'm like, okay, here's the thing. I'm over 50. So the concept of, if I can do anything I can do here on my computer, I'm going to do it on my computer. But at the same time, I don't want to be one of those quote unquote old dogs that doesn't want to learn a new trick. So I'm like, okay, well, let me just try this battery thing out and kind of see. So of course, the first battery I buy, I'm like, okay, the mega battery that doesn't work. I'm like, oh gosh. And I posted it on social media, which is even more embarrassing. But a little humble pie never did a guy bad last time I checked. So I actually have 2 new batteries that have shown up. One that previously came that works just fine, but I went for a larger version. I think Chris was actually the guy that told me about they had it on sale. So it was like a $15 coupon, which I'm pretty excited about. I like getting a good coupon on a deal. So the point being is that I'm still of mixed opinion about the whole concept of the battery. One of the things, and it's not up here, that I'll be reviewing in the upcoming issue of Worship Musician Magazine is something called the Earthboard, which is probably the coolest pedal board I've ever seen. So it utilizes a series of earth magnets, and they've got this very unique power system that is, again, battery powered. But the thing about it is the fastest setup and rearranging pedal board I've ever seen. They've got a bunch of cables and kind of converting power supplies. Nothing quite as that I have in the setup that I've got as extreme as something you need for an HX Stomp. But all the Strymon and the H9 stuff fires up just fine. And they sent me all the different things. But what's really cool about it is, like, traditionally, you to move stuff around, it's drama on a pedal board. But basically the Velcro sits on the bottom of your pedals, and then there are magnets that sit on the kind of the attachment that then gets magnetically connected to the pedal board. So if you want to move a pedal in your signal chain, you just basically disconnect the audio runs. You kind of pull it off the board, relatively easy. It has nice holding power, but it's not like wrestling with Velcro. By the way, let me just mini rabbit trail. I've spent a lot of time the past week pulling pedals off of boards. And the most extreme Velcro, and it's not a Velcro brand, it's a mega kind of like way extreme, grossly unnecessary. Most of the time, the adhesive comes off the bottom of whatever device it's attached to, and that thing is left there on, stuck to whatever surfaces, and then you're kind of trying to ply it off of there. I've found that generally the low loop Velcro stuff seems to be really, really good. And it's that fine balance between keeping stuff on there and like having literally the Velcro come off the bottom of the pedal, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. The point being is that in pulling all these different things off, what's neat about the way the Earthboard is set up is it's got these basically feet that attach to the bottom of your pedals via Velcro, and you can just move stuff around. You just kind of pull it off and move it around and just repatch the cables. And basically on the bottom of this foot, there's a little slot that you basically stick in their power cable, and that connects to your pedals, and it fires it up. And they've got, the various things you need to do for 9 volts and 12 volts and, Eventide, which has got a reverse polarity, and, so all that kind of slightly persnickety stuff. And, fires up the Eventide and the Strymon stuff just fine, which is pretty darn cool. So, all right, I see a couple of comments coming in here. Let's take a look here. Oh, my word. Holy cow. All right, NTP, what's going on? All right, let me just start at the top here, and I will just toggle back and forth. All right, hang on. Let's see if I can get this to pull into here. Good. All right, first of all, hello. Okay, Doug, I've been wondering, is Worship Musician Magazine part of any organization, maybe Worship Together? I started following this channel because of the interviews you've done, and it's turned into a wealth of knowledge. I am so thankful and so grateful. Our number one mission is to serve worship musicians. That's just kind of our thing. We have a very special relationship with the Worship Together folks. We are not owned by them. They do not have any financial ties into what we do, but we work very closely with them. And Worship Together is basically a part of Capital Christian Music Group, and they are, the funny thing is, for all the talk about the business, they are the most amazing group of God-loving music fanatics that are as passionate about the music that you and I play in the act of putting it out and equipping people. And ironically, last Easter, one of the things, Jessica, one of my main contacts there, we had this thing where I interviewed her about the resources they put together for Easter. And it's not like they're out there horking those resources, for sale. It was a bunch of resources, and yes, it is Capital artists and or Capital publishing related stuff, because they do actually have to pay some bills from time to time. But the heart behind it, and just to see how she felt when she spoke, was really, the eyes tell you a lot when a person lights up about what they're passionate about. So we really appreciate that feedback. We are really working to strive to grow, to get better. And so the feedback is always greatly appreciated. Bruce Adolph, my publisher, is featured in an ad in the upcoming NAMM magazine for Summer NAMM, and I am so thrilled that they felt like they wanted to honor him. And it's just, he's the best boss. He doesn't let me call him boss. He's the best publisher ever, but technically he is, don't say anything, my boss. So thank you for the feedback. Most greatly appreciated. We love the Worship Together folks. We had an email exchange with them today. They are absolutely phenomenal. We have close relationships with Word and all the Christian labels. But we part of our digital distribution is through the Capital or Worship Together email list, and we're just so blessed by that. They are so good to us, as are some of the other partners. Actually, all the partners we get a chance to work with. The magazine industry is not necessarily what it once was, but we literally, every issue goes out to 1 million plus inboxes, and we are so humbled and thrilled. It's not like all 1,000,000 people open that up. I understand that, but we still are doing the best we can to be good stewards. So it's always appreciated, the feedback. Okay. Oh. By the way, I like the new photos. So the whole solderless cable thing, I love that. So this is the interesting thing, is I go back and forth around the whole cable thing. As you guys have heard me blabber on, Jeff Singleff from Boss is a dear friend. And they have these great solderless cables that, kind of once you learn how to get them just right, they work great. The other thing is Joe Satriani, and you've heard me say this before. Here we go. Joe Satriani. This, by the way, is this very cute little gig case for his backing tracks. And actually, this is a thumb drive based on his infamous Chrome Boy guitar. So the point being, I digress. Joe uses solderless cables, and his tone is not sucking. And they seem to be working just fine, and he travels kind of all around the world. And, when we think of, guitar players who have signature sound, basically he's using, it's now D'Addario, what do they call it? Planet Waves. They're not called solderless cables. Basically, it's used to be Planet Waves, but it's basically their solderless cables, both the instrument cables, Pedalboard cable kit. And so, if Joe can use them, they're good. They're great, actually. And same thing with the Boss ones. I honestly have a harder time with the super thin cables, and that's purely psychological. It's like the old guy in me who goes like, a battery? Same thing with the really thin cables, but, they sound great. So honestly, could I hear the difference? Probably not. And me with a soldering gun, you just really don't want to witness that. I had to actually put together, I'm in the midst of this video, and by the way, tonight's going to be a slightly shorter show because I've got to go back to work on the Celestian video because it's going to be a very long night in Dopplerville. But basically me soldering cables inside a speaker cabinet when I wasn't choking on solder fumes, it's pretty funny if you actually are an articulate solderer, which I am not, and I was reminded of that. There's technique to all of this. Me with a soldering gun is bad. So to tell you the truth, I'm down with the idea, and they certainly are convenient. The idea of being able to cut to length, because the other thing is I have these other DiMarzio cables that are pre, the ends are on there kind of permanently. They're great cables, and so you kind of have to curl them or hide them underneath the pedal board so nobody knows that there's like all this extra length. So the ability with the solderless cables, for those of us that really shouldn't be soldering anything, to be able to cut them to length, it's a pretty good convenience. Jem, much love, my friend. Pedalboard, thank you for joining us, by the way. Good morning. Kyle, what's going on? Helix user. Okay, all right. You're about to hear me talking a lot about Helix. So, first of all, I absolutely, you want to hear me say a couple of things about Helix? First of all, let me give a little bit of background. Part of what my gig is to stay up on whatever is kind of current. But in terms of love affair with Helix, there is no brand in the modeling space that has my heart the way that Helix does. Those guys are great. I had a little exchange with Eric Klein, the mastermind of Helix, and of all the really, really smart things that are out there, Fractal, Quad Cortex, the Helix, in terms of the end user experience, it's, and Helix Floor in particular, and HX Stomp XL, which basically to me is kind of like my happy spot. I love HX Stomp, but having those extra 6 buttons there, and basically the short version is, but you open the door, so I'm going to go there, and I please forgive me the people that have heard this. I was on a call with the with two of the Line 6 guys. And I said, hey, I just want to let you know I've been spending some time hanging out with the Boss thing because I feel, I like to keep transparent relationships. And I said, really, I'm really enjoying the MC6. And my guy pulls out HX Stomp XL before it got leaked. And I was like, and the same person actually came to what I believe was a Satriani camp. And I got a chance to see HX Stomp before the world did. So I had a very privileged relationship with them. And speaking of this, So when Joe Satriani put this out, and this isn't a bragging rights, this is stake your flag in the Helix sand and go, Helix, spoken here. When Joe put this out, he invited me to basically submit a video playing over one of the backing tracks. And then he posted it on his social media. And ironically, I used a Warship Tutorials patch where I think I just turned on all the drives and then kind of did my traditional dotted eighth and quarter note delays on one side and the other. But it's basically a Warship Tutorials, I think like their free AC30 patch, which is totally a hoot. But those guys, make great patches. So I absolutely love the Helix stuff. I think it is brilliantly designed. And I can say after having spent a bunch of time inside the Quad Cortex, it has made me appreciate the ingenuity, the flexibility, the workflow, the love, the care, the intelligent design, the ideascape. Let's kind of make this box represent the end users and really think as many of these things through. Because what's happening a little bit in the Quad Cortex world is they're finding out it's not limitless in terms of the number of reverb blocks that you can use. And it's largely the Warship people are like, let's put 20 reverbs and delays on there. And so, they're kind of learning, like all companies do when they bring a product that's new into the marketplace. They're learning some things that they hadn't anticipated. And the thing about the Line 6 folks is that, in case you didn't know, a little bit of history here. A guy named Marcus Ryle, who's no longer technically with the company. He sold the company to Yamaha. But Marcus's history goes back to Oberheim and Alesis, where he invented the ADAT. Not only that, when he invented the ADAT, I think it was at the same time, he also invented the light pipe spec. So if any of you have like an old school Sony, and I've got one, but I'm not going to bother hopping out of the chair, Sony home stereo system, and it had, kind of these little funny little digital cables that had like a little red laser shooting through there. He invented that. And he's one of the most respected geniuses in the business. And then he started this little company called Line 6. And, they started off as a plug-in company. So in many ways, my guess is that Doug Castro has looked at what Marcus did and kind of went, this is great, because if you look at Neural DSP, they started off as a plug-in company. And then they made hardware. Modeling hardware. Does that sound familiar? So, the neat thing is that, the Quad Cortex is a fabulous unit, but the more I've used it, the more I appreciate the ingenuity of Helix. I cannot wait, because this week, one of the things I get a chance to do is finally spend some quality time in HX Stomp XL, which I think is a fabulous piece of technology. And I think, one of the other things I can say, no, I can't be, well, actually, yeah, I can't say it. No, it's fine. All right, I'm trying to stay attuned to the Holy Spirit. So one of the things the Warship Tutorial guys and myself met with Line 6 and Sweetwater a year ago, Winter NAMM, and they asked us, the Warship Tutorial guys contributed presets. I contributed Helix University. So it's basically a training course. And these were given as perks for Warship musicians who bought a Helix from Sweetwater. And I've seen a steady uptick, because I see when people join the university, I get a little email. And I've seen a nice steady uptick since the Quad Cortex was released of people joining Helix University. Now, I can't definitively say by how much, those things are up, but it's a pretty good sign that the Quad Cortex seems to be selling an awful lot of Helixes, or Helices, or whatever the plural is. So that is to say, I love it. Was that enamored enough? So there. Gases wouldn't make electric guitar player fun. I love it. Yes. We and I got something cooking that is such a crazy scheme. I can't talk about it yet. Brad, what's going on? Hello. Evening to you. Solderless cables, reliably and loss of tone. Learn how to solder my own cables and never look back. But if you're interested, I have 36 minis. Danny Drake, hello. Welcome. HD 500X. There's one floating around here. Gets the job done, but the guy running sound and I have different opinions on what sounds good. Am I going to chomp on that bait? Yes, I am. Okay. Sure. All right. There's got to be a couple of Hendrix fans in the house. As I recall, Jimmy wasn't using the latest and greatest quad cortex or even helix floor, and not even HD500X, which, by the way, is a fabulous unit. The thing that I miss about that unit is the Vox AC30 model. When you turn the drive up, they did something in the way to design this. I'm pretty sure this is Jeff Slingloff, who's now with Boss, but it brings the treble back just a little bit. That is to say, it pulls it down and it gets a little bit less bright. It's the exact sort of thing that you want to have happen. Let's say you've got a distortion pedal going into the front end of an amplifier. You turn the drive or distortion up, and as you do, it gets a little less pokey. And whoever did that just got it just right. I absolutely love it. And, in Helix, I love the AC30 stuff, don't get me wrong. But HD500X and just the HD500 had both of them. I loved the way that worked. And the is Octaverb, which is now in Helix, but it's in kind of in the legacy stuff. What a great reverb. I mean, just, and lest we not forget, Lincoln Brewster was not sucking too bad in one of those. So that gets us to the whole dispute about, look, let's presume your sound person is really good. They can get up there and strum the guitar. They really want to, they want to tell you how to set your amp. And yes, we want to work with a sound tech, but you know what? You're the one that's strumming those strings, making the sound that is appealing to you. And it is a conversation. If it's too bright or too bassy, those are things that we want to dialogue about, healthily so. But you're the guitar player. They're the sound tech. Everybody's got an opinion. Did I say that? And you know what? Here's the great thing is that I'm fortunate enough that as I continue to endeavor more, I see new people showing up, and it's such a privilege. And I always listen to the negative comments because they're almost always on target. Sometimes they're not always said nicely, but they are some of the most important learning points. And I it's always dangerous in ministry to have yes people around you, because then you never really know, right? Jim, Brad. In any case, Danny, welcome. There we go. 3M dual lock whenever I am putting together. There we go. When I'm putting together the board, I think that is what I've got downstairs. I have to. No, maybe not the 3M. No. The stuff that I've kind of decided I like is actually low profile but has good grip. The other stuff that I'm not going to mention by name because I can't remember the name of it, but it was just like, I remember getting a sample of it, and the distributor was like, the strongest, cable attachment stuff ever. And I'm just like, it is, and it's too strong. You guys are awesome. Look at this. Come on. All right. Good. I have a custom board I made on CNC similar to Holy Board. Changed the holes and I made it more what I wanted. That's awesome. I also use rubber adjustable straps. Velcro does not last in Florida, nor does it last on a wah-wah. There are some manufacturers that have kind of made these base plates that you can put on there, or kind of a toe and a foot hugger. But that's the thing is I've toured the United States, and in the back of a really hot van, like, pedals start sliding off, and that slime, when you get that on your hands, there's nothing like Velcro slime. I feel you, man. I feel you. That sounds exciting. Shoot me a photo of that board. I'd love to see it. Yes. Steve, using a Helix LT. Come on, bring it. Bought a stomp off a friend for a small board loaner option, trying to convince some more players to become Helixers. The interesting thing is that I'm going to take the bait on this. I think, and first of all, I'm friends with kind of all these folks, except for not really friends with the Kemper guys. And generally speaking, I'm not saying that the Kemper guys aren't. I just don't quite know them. All these folks are generally really, really, really cool people that really care about what they do. But I will say, I think the Line 6 guys, at the end of the day, I think the Quad Cortex thing, I think is going to be really good for them. and you first of all, and I've without going too far down the rabbit trail, I'm present enough in some of the different places where there are threads going to just kind of see what the comments are, and it's an interesting thing. I think Line 6 is about to have a bunch of people that might have jumped to the latest and greatest kind of go, you know what? I flippin' love Helix. And I love Helix. The workflow is so smart. I sent an email to Eric Klein, the guy that is the Helix, and I just kind of like saying his praises. I'm just like, you're just a genius. So I've heard, but as I recall, Eric Johnson uses the George L's, and his tone ain't sucking either. Awesome, Steve. Using a hybrid of soldered cables and George L's at the moment, but I'm going to switch 100% to soldered because I've had troubles with solderless cutting in and out. That is never a good thing. Intermittent gear. I was at a studio back in the day where the engineer had to kick the rack to make it work. Not a good thing. Soldering cables is how I learned to solder. The funny thing is, Alan, I will actually go a little sentimental on you. My stepfather and I soldered my Gibson L6 Deluxe. We put DiMarzio pickups in that when I was in like 7th or 8th grade, which was a long time ago. And he kind of taught me how to solder, and it was an amazing bonding experience. He's gone. But as I was kind of there in the back of this Marshall cabinet, sucking up solder, inhaling it, that is, the idea is when you've got your head inside a 412 cabinet, it's a good idea not to breathe while the solder's in there. Ask me in 15 years. But it was really kind of a very kind of an emotional thing to just remember. Is like, and I still have amidst all this stuff because I don't really get rid of stuff, which is why I've still got the HD 500, and I think I've got the HD 5, both the 500 and the 500X, or at least the 500X, and the Pod, and my 002 and my 003. That's a different conversation. So the point being is the soldering thing. Emotional. Look at this. Gem, all about the insert, quarter twist, screw fully down without too much pressure on the cable. Technique with the George L's will make or break you. Thank you very much. Hang on, there we go. Click the right thing. Gosh, the Helix has changed my life, my guitar life since playing through a good tube amp for the first time. The thing is that having... for me, Quad Cortex is this year I'm actually really focusing on my brand. Not that that's what this show is about. So the ability to create captures for Quad Cortex is my largest interest there, besides actually helping people, with their gear challenges. So kind of my thing is that one of my goals was to become, being transparent, one of the 5 people that people think about when they think about modeling gear. I don't need to be number 1. I don't need to be number 2 or number 3, but I would like kind of like, it was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. So it's been a really great opportunity to invest in that goal, and it's yielded a lot of dividends in just being able to help people figure stuff out. But Helix has changed my life in so many different ways, and I totally feel you, and it's just one of those things, quite often, when I'm doing something with Helix Rack, which is kind of my studio go-to, I get up to leave the room and I keep thinking, I've got to put the amp on standby. Right, it's the Helix. I just love that. Chris Alexander, hey, I hope you're doing okay. Shoot me a text and let me know how the weekend went. Great to see you here, my friend. Echoing Alan. My HX Stomp served me well this weekend with a modified Warship Tutorial patch, dual drives, matchless amp, stereo delay chords with a glitz reverb. You're singing my love language. I think the Warship Tutorial guys make the best patches in the world. I know that's saying a lot, but they really, and they are amazing people. I love those guys. I had a nice little texting match with Brian Wall earlier. He's just lovely. Ah, okay. You're going to go there. Okay. Sean Halley is one of the most amazing demonstrators, and I take it you probably saw his Telecaster demo for the Fancy Pants American Professional. Is that the name of the new top-of-the-line Fender Telecaster? But, oh, Alan, I didn't see the back part. I don't know about that, but you know what? If that works, then I'm all in. So thank you. And yes, Sean Halley is awesome. And what a great player. Okay. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Here we go. The gas is on. One of my favorite pedalboard setups done. So I'm going there. So here's the deal. Part of what I'm needing to do, and I don't have, we're peaking a little bit. Hang on. Not monitor, input. There we go. Testing. All right. So I could pull this up without this nonsense, but hidden underneath that Worship Guitar Show is the RJM PBC6X. So this is kind of my momentary dream board, and the idea is, as you've probably heard, Quad Cortex is not as robust in the effects as some of the praise and worship folks would like. So the great thing is that there is a Quad Cortex for the capture function, and then those two. I'm not a big expression pedal person, but the Mission folks sent. Oops! Don't do that, Doug. The Mission folks sent those along for something I'm going to do around Quad Cortex, and so I'm going to be getting used to that. In the upper right-hand corner is obviously an important piece of technology there. Oh, hang on. Let me get rid of the countdown. My bad. Hang on. Let me do this, and let me do this. Let's see here. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. And so, by the way, on the desk is the best effect ever, the Talent Booster. Can't go wrong with one of those. I digress. So the interface are up on top. So that is a stereo to mono summing box. And that will very quickly tell you whether your stereo signals are phase coherent. It would also tell you what happens if your signal gets compressed to mono. Are you using enough copious delays that things get messy? King of Tone. And I'm kind of going across the upper right-hand corner. That box, well, it's the only stomp that's on there. I guess that says it all. H9. All the best studio sounds from the late 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Got to be there. Timeline. What a great sounding delay. It kind of does everything. Big Sky. I like that a lot, but the timeline of those two is the magic for me. And then I actually like the Eventide reverbs more than I like the Strymon ones. Not that there's anything wrong with them. And then there's HX Stomp. Like pretty much, and I could live with an HX Stomp and probably finish whatever my career is with an HX Stomp and do just fine. However, HX Stomp XL, of course, on the left-hand side there, if you sprouted about 2/3 again and added 6 more buttons, that would be there. But with what's hidden in the lower left-hand side there is the RJM PBC6X, which implies that all this stuff is kind of happening in the loops there, and there's all sorts of MIDI control going on with all of that. So it means that this is kind of all the stuff. And so what's interesting is there is not an actual compressor there, but that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be compression algorithms happening there. So to answer your question, Jem, that's what it looks like for me. So I'm about to wire that puppy up, and I'm pretty darn excited about that. So, the interesting thing is that part of what I'm doing tonight is doing the first in a series of videos for Celestion around their full-range live response speakers. And I've been on this video for a couple of days, so it's going to be a long night. But I've been spending basically to do those demos that everything needs to be done in mono or dual mono, which has been a really interesting journey because strategically, Most guitar players just start off in mono. They don't wake up and go, I'm going to play guitar and I'm going to play in stereo. Yes, I'm going to use, a compressor. Then I'm going to go into, some drives, and I'm going to go into 2 amps. Yes, I'm going to have 2 amps and 2 cabinets and, a bunch of then stereo effects. And, maybe I'm just going to start off wet, dry, wet. We don't start off there, right? We start off in mono. But the interesting thing is kind of coming back to this mono thing. And I believe I mentioned last week, Larry Mitchell kind of had this little kind of like, let me sit you down for a second, Doug, in a non-toxic way, and just kind of pointed out, you don't have to be in stereo the entire time. It gives you someplace to go to if you hang out and spend some time in mono. That really resonated with me, and I'm like, okay. That said, I do believe, as it relates to the worship leader, 2 amp models, not hard pan, but in about, if you will, kind of 30%, and then your delays and your reverbs all the way on the outside. If you listen to that in a good stereo field with clarity, you'll actually hear the separation, and it's kind of like you get this little wake coming off the sound of the amps because they're delayed, but also they're delayed to the side, such that each next transient is kind of, if you will, if you think about the wake of a boat, it's coming here where all the delays are further and reverbs are further to the outside. So that separation of the layers is big, and that's one of the reasons I love stereo. But I also appreciated the fact he was like, look, it doesn't have to do that the entire time. And there's also the singer from One Republic has a video course about songwriting, and I kind of watched some of the advertising about it, and he was talking about like every 8 bars, he tries to have something new happen. So it's really got me thinking about, well, if I'm playing in stereo and it's big all the time, then how much does that give me the ability to do that? So that's I just kind of showed it to you. That's the for me in this moment allows me to do all the things that I want to do on a pedal board, because the compressor, interestingly enough, Quad Cortex does not have an MXR Dynacomp, which is just kind of like, there's some stuff they missed. Honestly, there's some kind of big stuff they missed, and that's one of them. Like Dynacomp. It's like, and HD500, HD500X, that has been my worship compressor forever. And I absolutely love the Dynacomp, but that's a personal thing. There are lots of other great compressors. Keeley certainly sounds great. The 4-knob Keeley compressor, which of course is no longer cool to use, which is always silly, because if you fall in love with a piece of gear like, I don't know, the HD500X, if it works for you, it works for you. Right. So I hope that answered that without too much silly sarcasm. Great question. I love that. Well done. There we go. Nathan, hey, what's going on, my man? So, hey, I've got some nice old germanium transistors waiting for a pedalboard build. Woohoo! This whole fuzz face thing, I love fuzz. And it's a particular thing. And for those of you that have not played to a vintage fuzz face, or even some of the Dunlop ones, that thing that happens when you back off on the volume control, you get cleaner than clean. You've gone from this wicked, sputtery, snaky thing, and all of a sudden it cleans up to this blissful thing. It's just really, there's magic in circuits that some people who actually know how to use a soldering gun can bring out. Keep me posted. It sounds exciting. Kyle, sounds like we have the same opinion. That's awesome. I've actually converted a few of my analog buddies over to Helix. Woohoo! Also, Jim, the Helix is my attempt to avoid gas. It's an amazing thing that those guys have done. And the workflow and the touch capacitive foot switches, and, it's just, and they just make it better. All right. What? No Rockman. I've still got a Rockman. Sooner than later, there'll be something called Doppler's Vintage Vault on my Saturday show for those that are kind enough to migrate on over. And Alan, it's always a pleasure to see you there. But the Rockman is definitely going to be making an entrance, and I love the Rockman. All right. Let me jump over to here and Facebook. What you got for me? All right, so now when I do this, hang on a second. Chris Kettlewell and 4 others commented on your post. That's so funny. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. So I've learned to scroll on these guys. All right. First of all, Steve, Helix mainly, Chris, wouldn't have been me. Chris, sorry, Chris. Okay. Reading Chris, and I can't bring this in because of the way there's RTSP. RTMP? Oh, I always can never remember. I think it's RTMP. RTMP. It is and just like HTTP is an internet protocol. And so basically, because I have to connect to Facebook through RTMP, it is unable to pull the comments into chat. So in any case, all right, Chris, a few years back, I switched over to Helix LT. So something with Helix gas changes from buying gear to just trying out different gear on the Helix itself. Isn't that cool? Though I'm at a small church with a very limited worship team. There we go. I'm pretty much exclusively playing acoustic at the moment at church. Though I have thought about trying to introduce a bit of electric again at some point. You know, you could always layer a little bit of electric and acoustic together. But here's the thing is that I love playing acoustic guitar. In many ways, sometimes as much or more than electric, simply because it is so organic, right? You can really get the tactile sense. I love that. And, you know, the great thing about a small church is that, you know, it's kind of like an oar in a very still waterway. You don't have to row too hard to make a lot of change, right? So I appreciate your judiciousness of not rocking the boat too much. So cool. Forrest, been using a Podgo with a variety of effect loop ODs. Yes, no batteries. Simple linear power supply for ODs is fine. There we go. There's SVT Sim works great for bass. Absolutely. So the other thing, if you get a moment to check it out, I'm 90% positive it's in there. I did a little kind of bass rumbly thing with Podgo when it first came out. And I'm pretty sure I pulled up an Ampeg flip top. That is usually, it's not quite as aggressive as the SVT is, but, you know, I love SVTs. And, you know, as I presume you will know, Line 6 and Yamaha and SVT are all kind of one big giant company, which is pretty darn cool. And yes, the SVT stuff is great in there, but I really loved, and I'm pretty darn sure it was the flip top. Yes. Brett, hello. Great to see you, my friend, even if it is virtually. True that. Chris, if you're still running an HD500X, I'm guessing you're pretty resistant to gas because you clearly haven't updated in a long time. You know, here's the thing. Peter Daviduck. Oh, I love it. Hello, my friend. So, you know, here's the thing is that it's really easy to chase the gear thing, you know. And it gets back to my Jimi Hendrix comment is like, you know, it seems to be this slightly circular thing where we get excited about the new thing, and then it's not the new thing anymore, and then we get kind of unexcited about it. The other thing is whatever the kind of latest and greatest is, we find out, you know, maybe the thing we had before. Again, you know, my analogy is, without calling anybody out too thoroughly, is I think there are, you know, there was the excitement about what Quad Cortex could be, and in many ways is, but then there's the reality of what Helix is and has been. And I was really concerned because I love the people at Line 6 and I love the products, HD500X included and HD500, that people would just kind of dump their Helices and just run towards Quad Cortex because it's, you know, the new thing. And again, you know, just kind of seeing what I'm seeing to be gathering from the Pulse, it's not the case, and I love that. Peter Daviduck, Forrest has lit the gas with your SVT comment. I think I might have to move from my Gen 1 to Gen 1 and 2 bass pods. Oh man, you are dialing the clock back. I love that you're OG and you know how to play it. So it's in the fingers, it's not in the box. Shane, hello, great to see you. Chris, one of the things that I was happy to get when moving to the Helix was so many patch cables. I know there's a word missing. Get rid of when I moved to the Helix. There was so many patch cables and so many points of failure. I mean, this is the thing. It's like that box. I mean, they've been they created a platform that whole assignability, like however you want, stomps, presets, snapshots, presets, like all of that, and then to be able to toggle between and kind of randomly access and associate different functions with the different foot switches and that whole touch capacitive thing. It's just kind of like, I'm loosely, although I'm not as in it as I should be. I'm one of the beta testers. I think I'm allowed to say that because, well, I just did. But they don't stop. They're just like, let's make it better. Let's let's add something that hasn't been in there before. A generation back now, they did this preset spillover, and it does come at the expense of one of your Shark processors. That is to say, true spillover from one preset to another. And to the best of my knowledge, they are the only modeler that does that. And so basically, the way it works is you kind of have to give up one of your Shark processors, which means you can't have 5 million things across every possible path. But if you can constrain yourself or choose to, you can literally change from one preset to the next and have true gapless preset spillover when you move from one path to the other. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Okay. Forrest, we use in-ears, but my brain, I hear a 5-foot tall box full of 10-inch speakers. At least you don't have to move it. I got a funny story for you. This is one of my funniest stories ever. Years ago, I was the orange demo guy. And there are a couple of parts of the story, part of which isn't funny. But I had pretty much the majority of the orange product line here because I was their demo guy. And they needed it at the NAMM show. So basically they rented a U-Haul. And I loaded it full of stuff and drove down to LA. And halfway down the drive at like 3 a.m, I've got to be there at like 9 to load into the trade show. This red light comes on the engine, the check engine light. And I'm just like, oh no. Because it's the middle of I-5. You're in the middle of nowhere. And it's freezing. It's like 28 degrees. So I'm like, I'm going to die, with a truck full of oranges. But the thing is that their 810 cabinet, basically, the thing's about as tall as I am. So I had to figure out how to get the box on that thing, so I could get it down to Los Angeles. It was the funniest thing that wasn't really that funny. But I mean, it's just like you kind of have to get it on top of the thing. You have to flip it on its side, and you have to flip it up, and it was an endeavor. All right, Brett, here we go. I'll be the black sheep of the bunch tonight and say I don't really care for Helix. And you know what? All good. I tried for a long time, and without a computer, it's not so friendly to edit. The interesting thing is the one complaint that I think people have had about Helix is that they wish there was a touchscreen. And as somebody who basically, I can't see the letters on my keyboard clearly without these, right? So for a touchscreen, it's not a workflow that I like, and honestly, I think that is a really articulate thing. I am a deep editing freak. I love a deep editor, but not everybody does. And your point is really on target. It would be it's hard. So hang on a second. Without a computer, and it's not friendly to edit. Also seems to take so much time editing to get realistic sounds from it. I just don't want to spend that much time or have to invest in it. And that's, here's the thing. What I love about Helix is I actually found the sounds really realistic. But, and I'm also discovering this in the Quad Cortex, I'm kind of like, there's always going to be, first of all, some sounds that resonate with you, and then some sounds that are not as good as the others. And I had this conversation with Lincoln Brewster. It's just because you model an amplifier doesn't mean it was a good sounding amplifier. Let's make McDonald's as our example. We've all probably had a Big Mac. Some are actually kind of tasty, and others you probably regret eating because the people making it just didn't really even know how to make a Big Mac. The point being, or fill in the blank, Kentucky Fried Chicken, veggie burger, mushroom tofu burger. Point being is that if you model a bad sounding amplifier, you're gonna end up with a bad sounding model. And some things just don't sound as good, and others do. And so part of it is that knowing which ones automatically are going to float your boat. Like a deluxe reverb is always a great place to start. But I've discovered inside the Quad Cortex that there are certain sounds that I kind of went to, and I'm like, that I'm not feeling it. And my take was just like, I wonder how many other people are going to go to kind of a couple of things that I was like, oh, this is an obvious starting place. And I was just like, I just can't make this sound good. And I was like, okay, let me move on to something else. And the interesting thing for any Quad Cortex users out there, and I don't not beating up on you because I think it's an amazing box. The capture functionality, amazing. The thing is that I found that I really like the John Petrucci factory captures because the clean, I think it's like the third clean's got, you can put a little bit of hair on it. And, keeping in mind that the JP2C is basically a Fender amplifier that's the son of the child, that's the son of the father of steroids, right? That thing is basically a Mark IIC, which is basically a boogie on steroids, right? And the boogie started off, they started off their life as a Princeton. And they took out the 10-inch speaker, put in a 12-inch speaker, put it in a master volume, and off they went. And the Mark IIC is basically like all the best things about a Fender amplifier sounding like a Jose modded Marshall. They really kind of have a Marshall-y kind of a vibe without being too Marshall-y. Just an amazing amp. But because in the DNA, really, there's a Fender clean amp somewhere in the midst of all of that stuff, I knew that was going to be a place I could go to find some of the sounds that I wanted to find that I didn't find elsewhere. I think one of the frustrations that some people are going to have is some of the models that they would go to, I was just kind of like, I'm not really feeling it, which was surprising. Not necessarily a big fan of the spring reverb. I do love the modulated reverb. I think they did a really good job there. But it's strange that there's no Dynacomp. Just some stuff I'm like, that's just bizarre. Like, my guess is the Dynacomp's the best sounding, with maybe the exception of Boss. Hang on. Give me a moment. Let me do some market research. Okay, so you, of course, know that means that I'm going to Sweetwater. So I'm going to search guitar compressor, pedal, and let's see what comes up as the best seller today. Oh, interesting. Okay, best match. No, I don't want best match. I want the most popular. What's going to come up as the most popular? Keeley 4-knob compressor. So much for my comment about it being out of season. Well, there you go. Oh, this is hilarious. I'm not going to bother taking you there, but I will walk you through it. 4-knob Keeley compressor. Then one was a limited 4-knob with some Sweetwater special finish on it. Then a noise suppressor, which really isn't a compressor. Then the Behringer NR300, which invariably, I'm just going to say it, is probably a Boss compressor that they just grossly ripped off. The Ebo, last time I checked, is not a compressor. That's really weird. Okay, bass players. MXR M87 bass compressor pedal. If you play bass and have a pedal board at church, unreal. I think it's basically like an 1176 on your pedal board. Just sounds great. GE7, the Exotic SP Mini Comp, and I'm sorry I'm not showing this to you, but I'm going to be out of there in just a minute. And then the M102 Dynacomp compressor. That's really interesting. All right, let me get out of here. Hang on a second. Get out of there. Get out of there. What are you doing in there? All right. And you know what? It actually takes guts to go, hey, I didn't drink your Kool-Aid. Hang on a second. What is Chris leading me to? Hang on a second. I love it. A vibrating hang on a second. Hold on a second. I got it. No. Hang on a second. Hang on. Wait. I gotta go there. Hang on a second. This is awesome. Thanks, Chris. Let's do this. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. I give you the Feel the Bass with the Sub Pack M2 vibrating vest. How about that? Holy cow! I love it. There's also a thing that mounts to your strap that I've got here that we met those guys at the Summer NAMM show, I guess 2 years ago. But it basically allows you to feel the bass, right? Because it's one of the things about playing through in-ears. It's strange where there's no bass amp, right? So how do you actually feel that thing? So that's really cool. I love how much cool gear there is. That's awesome. All right. Peter, or Backbeat. There it is. That's it. Which I've got, and it works great too. That's it. The Backbeat. It's awesome. Peter, point for Peter Daviduck. Hey, Brett, not a black sheep. Where's the fun if everyone uses the same gear? Hello. There's too much of that in Warship Space already. True that. But Helix actually has some pretty decent edit on the unit. Comparing apple to apples is very nice editing compared to other multi-effects units. For those of you that don't date back to editing a Rocktron in Teleflex, which was like, I think Satan invented the interface on that unit. Because like, and I've gotten used to more of these things, but basically the ability to mess up your gain staging. So there, traditionally with effects, you kind of have, a level, let's just say, I don't know, delay level. But every single one of kind of the blocks had basically an output level. So if you kind of didn't really know what you were doing, you could think, I'm going to bring up the delay, and you bring up the level, and it basically means that you added 10 dB to your delay block. And all of a sudden, your delay block's distorting your reverb block, and you kind of have to go, oh, wait a second, no, I didn't mean to do that. And the screen was all about that big. That was a thing. Chris, once again, pretty sure one of the Helix updates changed the default settings. Most of the blocks are the ones that sound better, so they take less editing, and they good sound than they did a couple of years back. The other thing is then you can, you can, of course, with guys like the Warship Tutorials, download some of their patches, and then there's also a favorites function as well in there, which those Helix guys, they know what they're doing. All right, hang on a second. YouTubers. All right. There we go. So the BBE stuff, I have a bunch of those pedals here, but I don't think I ever tried the sound press. But the interesting thing for those who don't know, BBE basically was part of not G&L. Maybe it was G&L. Yes, I think it is G&L. So after George and Leo, G and L left Fender, they formed G&L. And I don't remember whether Music Man was before or after. I think Music Man, I don't know. But the point being is that G&L, I think, owns, or the conglomerate owns BBE. Good bunch of folks. And those G&L guitars are awesome, as are the basses. Yeah, I'm crazy, but I'm keeping it. Oh, wait. Wait. Okay, there we go. Have you seen the price on used X100s? Insane. No. I love an editor, but I have to stop myself from tweaking constantly. The good thing is I'm able to get great sounds with minimal dive. There you go. I want to set up with a consistent sounds and play. That's the thing is that, it's tempting to get in. Let me just tweak that a little bit more. But generally, I kind of like to get there. Dude, you have no idea. Seriously. Thank you very much, Alan. Music Man was first, then G&L. Thank you, guys. I had one of the first Music Man amps. Never should have gotten rid of it. HD 120, was that what it was? Not to be confused with an HD 500. So Aerosmith was using those. So it was actually, the sad reality is that that's actually not true. The Cal Jam 2, Aerosmith sounded great, but right just after that, kind of it started getting a little dodgy. Creamback or green? What's going on, Henry? How you doing, my man? Oh, wait. Did I get you? There we go. Hey. Creamback or greenback? That is a great question. So the interesting thing is I have way more experience with the greenbacks. So I would be a greenbacker. But more because of the experience of last year at the end of the year, to take advantage of some tax benefits, I went hog wild and bought a vintage Marshall pinstripe cabinet with the era appropriate. They're supposed to be original to the cabinet potentially, but I don't really care. But they're the 30 watt, 55 hertz, Pulsonic, Holy Grail, Hendrix bass cones, greenbacks. So for me, there's honestly, if I were to self-diagnose, I'd be like, I just basically drank the Kool-Aid and then poured myself another glass. There is a certain amount of this that, you just kind of believe the mythology. But that cabinet actually there's a buddy of mine's got a metal fronted 71 or 72 Marshall small box head. And the combination of those two together, you're like, that's a sound. Like, that's one of the great things about a guitar amp. When you plug into a great sounding guitar amp, nothing but you, the cable, and the amp, and you go, that's a sound. You just kind of go, uh-huh. And it's very, very special. RD50 was my first Music Man amp. Killer limiter circuit. Love it. Actually, it was a Musictronics, which nobody liked. Then they settled on Music Man. I didn't know that. Look at all the things I'm learning. I love it. But the greenbacks, and the interesting thing is I'm not that big a fan of a Celestian blue on its own. But a blue and a greenback, I love that combination. They just kind of, the blue can just be a little pointy, especially if it's not been broken in. They're like, ooh. Yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to jump over into Facebook here real quick. Brett, strongly considering a Marshall Origin 20 and my pedals from an X-Ray. Love it. The interesting thing is I saw a guy that was on Saturday had a JTM 30. You might want to just, for pissies and gigglies, take a look. I don't think it's new I don't think they make them new, and I don't know anything about it, so let me clarify that. But it's kind of, JTM is kind of vintagey Marshall-y thing, which means in theory it's a good pedal platform. Has an effects loop. As I recall, it's a 1 or 2 12 combo. Generally with anything guitar, unless it's a 410. That's not necessarily true. The Vibrolux Reverb is one of my favorite amps ever, which is a 210 combo. But most of the time I prefer 12. In any case, awesome. Regardless, whatever you get, if it's an Origin thing, I love it. And I actually haven't played the Origin. So I actually, I don't know that amp, but I'm a huge fan of Marshall. And there's something about taking a Marshall to church that you're just kind of like, yes. So that's pretty funny. Henry, what's going on? Yes, love the answer, Doug. Me and my brother-in-law went to GC and went to play through a Marshall Studio JCM 800 head, the Freeman 112 cabinet, creamback, and holy moly, Doug, I sounded beautiful and rocky. Yes! And that, I don't care whether it's a wet paper bag, whether it's a modeler, whether it's tube amp, whether it's solid state. The most important thing is you have that moment of like, I got a sound going. And when there's a sound, there's a vibe, right? That's ultimately all we're looking for. We're looking for that moment where we can shoulder an anointing, that something falls on us that's a little bit bigger than the pair of shoulders we walked into the store with. We're like, oh, I got to shoulder this thing, right? That's what it's about. Ooh, Okay. uh, we definitely don't want unreliable. Uh, yes, so quilters. So the Tone Block 200. So I am doing, and this is why I gotta mosey on out of here in but a moment. Is I'm doing a series of videos on the Celestion full range live response speakers, and I came this close to bringing the Tone Block 200 into the mix as one of the power amps to power the cabinets. And because it's an ongoing series, there's always a possibility I might bring it in for one of the other videos down the line, because we're going to be going through all the kind of the common modeling families, and we're starting off with quad cortex just because. Then the next one is either going to be line 6 or the one after that. It kind of depends. I'm waiting to find out which would be, because it's going to be coming out on Celestion channel, which would be have any benefit, greater or otherwise, to the line 6 folks. So I'm kind of letting them kind of choose for me, and I have the freedom to kind of choose which order I want to do. But the quilter stuff is really cool. So I've got, and there was a guy, who was that? Totally gone. Somebody was on the Saturday show that was talking about, and they knew a lot about Celestion speakers. The speaker that's in that 112 combo, and I don't have the backpack. I've got the head, and then the cabinet, and then there's a little thing that you can use to kind of affix the head into the cabinet. I thought that was the most clever little thing. But I spent some time playing with it, and the great thing about that, as you will know, and for those who don't know, the quilter, it's this preamp, but it's 200 watts worth of power, but you can come in through the power amp in, and it's a relatively flat sort of thing when you need it to be. So it's great for acoustic guitar, it's great for electric guitar, it's great for a pedalboard platform, and it's great for modeling devices. My opinion about the quilter stuff, it's great. And the quilter guys are also QSC. And they're just a great bunch, and ironically, I ended up Winter NAMM show a year and a half ago, going out to dinner with the guys from ISO Acoustics, and the quilter guys were in line right behind us, so we kind of made friends and talked about a bunch of stuff. And then the QSC also supports the Satriani and the Vi guitar camps, and the Petrucci guitar camps with some PA gear, because they're insanely cool. Oh, hang on. There we go. Hang on a second. Wait, was Bruce here? Doug, it's your boss. I was driving, listening to your show on YouTube on the phone. Good show. Thank you, my friend. He's not my boss. He's my publisher. He's my publisher. He's my boss. If you get that joke, it's a long story. Oh boy, Bruce, congratulations. None of this would have happened if it weren't for Bruce. Congratulations on being the NAMM poster boy, Henry. Yes, I did have that sound. I just wish I had a lot of money to bring it home for me. And thank the Lord for Helix, Axifex, and Quad Cortex, and I had the lost brother now, Mr. Kemper now. Oh boy. So it's a journey, and the great thing is that there's no one path, and that's the best part. That's pretty funny. I love it. All right, hang on. Let me poke over here into the Facebook world. Awesome, Brett. All right. It's not a crazy gain amp. It's a bit like a Vox, but in drive, it's still a Marshall. That sounds nice. Great clean. Tube effects loop. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. All right. On that note. Oh, hang on. I saw Rick Costa up here. Where is Rick? Rick, thank you for being a friend. So... love you guys. All right. I saw something. Hang on a second. There we go. I still have my Beatitudes t-shirt I brought from Bruce eons ago. All right, we're gonna close out with some prayer here. Lord, we don't have to get nailed to a cross figuratively. I should say literally, to receive what you have set aside for us as believers. I love that song that Darlene sang. Here I am to worship. call upon the name of the Lord. Just the way she's saying that line, meaning and the heart and the embrace behind that. Unlike gear, what you have for us, maybe walking life comes at a cost. But accepting you is free. It's the best decision I've ever made. And I've made a lot of bad ones. What you give us that doesn't cost anything, what you have for us, which is freedom instead of lies. It's blessing instead of curse. It's the sort of generational inheritance that we want to pour into and sow into, such that those that we have the chance to bless and touch and pour into and speak words of life over, they in turn can do the same for the generations to come after them. I don't pretend to understand the cross. I don't pretend to understand you, Lord, but I do believe I know your character, and that I understand your heart and your will. And your will is to prosper us, and your will is to bless us. Your will is to also let us know when we've done wrong, and let us know when we've done right. You're a God of grace, but you're also a God of expectations. So I just pray that we can, shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, strengthen each other and be present in one another's lives, and just really fulfill the call that's on our lives. And I just give thanks again for the gift of music. I just, it's something that just is a source of renewable energy over and over every day, just like your mercies. So Lord, a lot of people here, invariably somebody's going through it. So Lord, we just put our arms together and we just lift them up, and we just pray, Lord, that you would bless them, and that you would speak to their troubles, and you would speak to them, and you would walk through that journey with them, as we already know that you are, and that you would provide the comfort that sometimes maybe folks don't always know is right there. Lord, I pray for everybody here's friends and family and their congregation, Lord. It's been a year of a lot of change. And as we kind of get back to going back to church, we're going to be confronted with new problems, but we're going to be confronted with some of the stuff that we've had to deal with in the past, Lord. So I just pray a spirit of grace upon everybody that's here, or anybody that might be watching after the fact. I pray a spirit of wisdom, Proverbs. Anybody who feels they're lacking wisdom, Lord, I pray that you lead them to the perfect verse in Proverbs. And anybody feeling like their heart has gotten hard, I just pray that you really just soften their hearts, Lord. That you really just lead them to Galatians, and just inspire them to just kind of loosen the strings a little bit and trust you. And sometimes, in life we have to keep our guard up a little bit. I understand that. But Lord, I just pray that we learn the spiritual discernment of when and where we need to just keep our guard up with the world. We don't have that turnaround and have that guard extend up to you, Lord. I pray for that judiciousness in each of us, and in me as well. So, Lord, I just pray that you really bless everybody here. We just give thanks for the power and the transformation of the cross, Lord. You died for our sins. You took our sins upon you, all the filth of this world, and defeated death. We're talking about modeling amplifiers, and we're talking about defeating death. You think big, Lord, and your actions are aligned with who you are over and over. So I just give thanks for your character, Lord, and I just pray that I can be a bit more like you every day. I pray that for each of the people that's here. We ask all of this in Jesus' mighty name. And we all said, amen. Whew. All right. Love each and every one of you. Thanks so much. Have an amazing, amazing, amazing week. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks again for being such a blessing. Be blessed. Be a blessing. And let the joy of the Lord permeate every pore of your body and every relationship that you have a chance to encounter. God bless. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen.